The Paragons fought bravely. They stood against the Anti-Monitor's might. Their efforts were in vain. The Anti-Monitor's power was too great. He crushed them with ease. Their hope dwindled. The multiverse trembled. Reality itself was on the brink. The Anti-Monitor unleashed his full power. The multiverse shattered. Countless Earths were consumed. Only darkness remained. The Paragons had failed. Their last stand had ended in utter defeat. The weight of their failure was immeasurable. The multiverse, their home, was gone. The Monitor, a being of immense power, had foreseen this catastrophe. He had planned for the worst. As the Anti-Monitor celebrated his victory, the Monitor acted. He used the last of his energy. A surge of cosmic energy enveloped the Paragons. It whisked them away to safety. They were beyond the reach of the Anti-Monitor for now. They found themselves in a place devoid of life, a blank canvas stretching into infinity. This was the void, a place outside the multiverse. They were alive, but their victory felt hollow. The multiverse was gone. Billions upon billions of lives extinguished. Their hearts ached with the unbearable weight of their loss. Each Paragon grappled with their failure. Blue Lantern Michael, the Paragon of Hope, felt his resolve waver. The weight of countless lost lives threatened to crush his spirit.
I've always fought for others, but now I feel so helpless.
Pietro, the Paragon of Destiny, felt the sting of his failure more acutely than the others. He had always been able to see the path forward, but now his vision was clouded.
I've lost everything. My home, my people, my love.
Panthro, the Paragon of Honor, felt the burden of leadership heavier than ever before. He had to find a way to rally his fellow Paragons, to give them hope in the face of despair. The multiverse was gone, and they were all that remained. As the Paragons struggled to come to terms with the new reality, two figures remained curiously unaffected. Frieza, the Paragon of Truth, observed his fellow Paragons with cold detachment. He had never believed in hope or destiny. His only concern was power, and he sensed a change within one of them.
I mourn the loss, but I feel a strange sense of purpose.
Unbeknownst to the others, Shaggy possessed a power unlike anything they had ever encountered, a power that lay dormant within him, waiting to be unleashed. Frieza, with his keen senses, was the first to recognize this hidden potential. He saw in Shaggy a weapon, a tool that could be used to reshape reality itself. The fate of the Paragons, and perhaps even the remnants of the multiverse, now rested on the shoulders of the most unlikely hero. The silence in the void was deafening. It pressed down on the Paragons, amplifying their despair. The multiverse, their home, was gone, billions of lives extinguished. It gnawed at their sanity. They had fought with everything they had. It hadn't been enough. Blue Lantern Michael struggled to maintain hope. He had sworn to spread hope. He had failed. Hawkgirl could only think of her lost world. The memory haunted her. It filled her with rage. Panthro fought to maintain his composure. This defeat was different. This time they had lost everything. Tenton, her eyes filled with unshed tears, clenched her fists. She had always been a fighter. She had dedicated her life to protecting others. She refused to give up. She had to believe there was a way to undo this catastrophe, a way to bring back the multiverse, a way to honor the billions who had perished. She looked at her fellow Paragons. Their faces were etched with despair, but even in their darkest hour she saw a flicker of hope. They were still alive. They were still together. As long as they had each other, there was a chance. Pietro, his movements sluggish, felt the sting of their failure more acutely than the others. He had always been able to see the path forward. He had always been able to outrun fate, but this time he had been too slow. He had failed to see the true extent of the Anti-Monitor's power. He closed his eyes, trying to focus. He had to see a way out. He had to find a path to victory. He was the Paragon of Destiny. He refused to believe their fate was sealed. He had to believe they could still rewrite their story. Frieza, cold and calculating, watched his fellow Paragons with a detached curiosity. He cared nothing for their grief. He felt no remorse for the loss of the multiverse. He had always been driven by a singular purpose, power. He had joined forces with the Paragons out of necessity. He knew that the Anti-Monitor posed a threat to his own ambitions. But now, with the multiverse gone, he felt a strange sense of liberation. He was free from the constraints of their reality, free to pursue his own desires. He observed his fellow Paragons, their weaknesses laid bare. The Blue Lantern, consumed by his failure, the Hawkwoman, driven by blind rage, the Thundercat, burdened by his responsibility, the human girl, clinging to a false hope. And then there was the Speedster, lost in his own despair. He could exploit their weaknesses. He could bend them to his will. He could become the ruler of this new reality. But as he looked at them, he sensed something else, something unexpected, something intriguing. Shaggy, his usual nervousness replaced by a strange calmness, stared into the void. He felt the loss of the multiverse deeply. He mourned for his friends, his family, his dog, but he also felt a sense of purpose, a feeling that he was meant for something more. He had always been afraid of ghosts, monsters, and even sandwiches. But facing the Anti-Monitor, he had discovered a courage he never knew he possessed. He had stood his ground. He had faced his fears. He had fought for something bigger than himself. He could sense Frieza's gaze upon him. He could feel the alien Emperor's cold, calculating stare. It sent a shiver down his spine, but he refused to back down. He had faced down cosmic horrors. He could handle a space tyrant. He knew that Frieza sensed something in him, something powerful, something dangerous, and for the first time in his life, Shaggy wasn't afraid. He was ready. Frieza approached Shaggy, his steps slow and deliberate. He circled the trembling hero, his eyes narrowed, studying his every move.
You intrigue me, creature. I sense a power within you, a power that even you are unaware of.
Shaggy took a step back, his hand instinctively reaching for Scooby's collar, only to find it empty.
Roo-ro, he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper.
He tried to ignore the tremor in his knees, the cold sweat prickling his skin.
Don't play coy with me, insect. I can sense the raw power coursing through your veins. It's almost intoxicating. He leaned closer, his voice a menacing whisper. Imagine what you could do if you could control it.
Shaggy swallowed hard, his mind racing. He didn't understand what Frieza was talking about. Sure, he had moments. Times when he seemed to tap into something beyond his usual clumsiness and fear. But this power? It seemed impossible. Let me help you unlock your true potential, Frieza offered, his voice deceptively gentle. Together, we can reshape this reality. We can make it our own. He extended a hand toward Shaggy, his face a mask of sincerity. Shaggy stared at Frieza's hand, his mind reeling. He had never thought of himself as powerful. He was just Shaggy, the scaredy cat, the goofball. But Frieza's words sparked something within him, a flicker of curiosity, a glimmer of hope. Before Shaggy could respond, a voice boomed across the void.
Step away from him, Frieza.
Blue Lantern Michael, his light blazing with renewed intensity, stood protectively in front of Shaggy. His jaw was set, his eyes narrowed. He had regained his resolve. He would not allow Frieza to corrupt another soul.
This is none of your concern, Lantern. This creature possesses a power that could be invaluable to us. I'm offering him a chance to embrace his true destiny.
His destiny is not yours to decide, Michael retorted, his voice echoing with the power of his will. He turned to Shaggy, his expression softening. Don't listen to him, Shaggy. He's trying to manipulate you. You are not a weapon. You are a hero. Shaggy looked from Michael to Frieza, his mind racing. He didn't know who to trust. He didn't know what to believe. But deep down, he knew that Michael was right. He couldn't let Frieza control him. He had to find his own way. Suddenly, a deep voice rumbled from behind them. Perhaps we can be of assistance. Panthro, flanked by Hawkgirl and Tenton, stepped forward. They had been observing the exchange, their faces grim. They had found something in the void, a glimmer of hope in the face of despair, and they had a plan. Panthro, his golden armor gleaming, stepped between Shaggy and Frieza. He sensed the conflicting energies swirling around them. Frieza was notorious for his cruelty and thirst for power. Panthro would not allow him to corrupt Shaggy.
Frieza, Panthro growled. You mistake kindness for weakness. We will not let you mold Shaggy into a weapon.
Frieza's smirk widened, his golden eyes glittering with amusement.
How noble of you, Thundercat, he sneered, protecting this creature as if he was some precious treasure.
Shaggy, caught between the two powerful beings, trembled. You may doubt our methods, Frieza, Michael said, stepping forward to stand beside Panthro, but you underestimate the power of Shaggy's heart. He is kind, compassionate, and selfless. These are the qualities of a true hero.
You have a good heart, Shaggy, she said, her voice gentle. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts.
Tenten realized arguing with Frieza would lead nowhere. He was driven by ego.
Frieza, she said, her voice calm and measured. We all want the same thing. To defeat the Anti-Monitor and restore what was lost.
Frieza considered Tenten's words, his expression unreadable. He could sense the raw power within Shaggy, a power that could rival his own if properly harnessed. The thought of molding such power, of shaping it to his will, was undeniably tempting.
Very well. I will assist in this training, but make no mistake. If this creature proves to be unworthy, I will not hesitate to destroy him myself.
Panthro growled, his claws flexing, but Michael placed a restraining hand on his arm.
We appreciate your cooperation, Frieza, but be warned, we will be watching you closely. We will not tolerate any unconventional training methods.
Shaggy, still overwhelmed by the situation, looked from one powerful being to the next. He felt like a pawn in a cosmic chess game, his fate in the hands of beings with unimaginable power. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. He had to believe that Michael and the others knew what they were doing. He had to believe that he could do this. He had to believe that he could become something more than just Shaggy. Frieza, his pride mollified by the agreement, outlined his proposed training regimen. It was brutal, unforgiving, designed to push Shaggy to his absolute limit and beyond. He spoke of unlocking hidden potential, of tapping into primal instincts, of embracing the fear that had always held Shaggy back. Panthro bristled at the harsh methods, but Michael urged him to be patient. They had to give Frieza the illusion of control, at least for now. They would find a way to guide Shaggy, to help him harness his powers without sacrificing his humanity. And so began Shaggy's journey to unlock the power within. Frieza pushed him relentlessly, forcing him to confront his fears, to embrace the adrenaline that surged through his veins whenever danger threatened. He sparred with Panthro, the Thundercat's warrior skills honing Shaggy's reflexes and agility. He meditated with Michael, the Blue Lantern's calming presence helping him to find a center amidst the chaos. Hawkgirl shared stories of her own battles, reminding him of the strength that came from fighting for something greater than himself. Tenten, ever resourceful, gathered what meager supplies the Void offered, creating makeshift training equipment and nourishing meals from seemingly nothing. While Shaggy trained, the other Paragons searched for any sign of hope in the desolate void. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they refused to give up. They had to find a way to reverse the Anti-Monitor's devastation, to honor the billions of lives lost.
There has to be something out there, some remnant, some echo of what was lost.
Please, let there be something, anything left.
Tenten, ever practical, focused on the task at hand. She knew that dwelling on the past would only lead to despair. They needed a plan, a strategy for survival, for rebuilding. She scoured the void for any resources they could salvage, any materials they could use to create shelter, to build a future. The silence of the void was deafening, a constant reminder of all that they had lost. Pietro, his speed diminished but not extinguished, raced through the void, desperate to outrun the crushing weight of their failure. He could still feel the echoes of the lost worlds, the fading whispers of billions of lives snuffed out. The memories haunted him, a constant reminder of his inability to save them. He pushed himself harder, his body a blur of motion, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He had to find a way to turn back time, to undo the Anti-Monitor's devastation. Suddenly he slammed to a halt, his body tingling with a strange energy. He stood before a swirling vortex of colors and sounds, a chaotic jumble of images and emotions. He recognized this energy. It was the residual energy of the multiverse, the echoes of countless worlds colliding. And within that chaos, he sensed something else. a faint signal, a beacon of hope. He raced towards the signal, his heart pounding with a mixture of dread and excitement. As he drew closer, the chaotic energy began to coalesce, forming a recognizable shape. It was a town, or at least the remnants of one. Buildings stood at odd angles, streets twisted into impossible knots. The air crackled with static, the remnants of shattered realities.
I found something. A town. It's not all gone.
He didn't know if it was a trap, a cruel trick of his mind, or a genuine sign of hope. But he had to find out. He had to believe. He raced back to the others, his heart pounding with a newfound urgency. They had to see this. They had to know that all was not lost. Days turned into weeks. The void remained a constant, oppressive presence. The Paragons persevered, their determination fueled by a desperate hope. Shaggy, under Frieza's brutal tutelage, began to change. The fear that had always defined him was slowly being tempered, forged into something harder, sharper. Frieza showed no mercy. He pushed Shaggy beyond his limits, forcing him to confront his deepest fears. Shaggy stumbled, he fell, he doubted himself, but each time a spark of defiance ignited within him. He wouldn't let Frieza break him. He wouldn't let fear control him. He had to be better for himself, for his friends, for the lost multiverse. Panthro, his initial skepticism giving way to grudging respect, guided Shaggy's physical training. He taught him how to channel his newfound energy, how to move with precision and power. Shaggy's transformation was undeniable, a testament to his resilience. Fear is a powerful weapon, Panthro rumbled, his voice echoing through the void as he sparred with Shaggy. But it can also be a source of strength. Learn to control it, Shaggy, and it will make you unstoppable. Their makeshift training ground, a flat expanse of rock in the otherwise formless void, vibrated with the force of their blows. Shaggy, his movements growing swifter, more fluid, blocked a thunderous paw swipe from Panthro. He countered with a clumsy but surprisingly powerful kick, sending the Thundercat staggering back.
He's stronger than he realizes, she said, her voice filled with a newfound respect.
Michael, his blue lantern casting a soft light upon the scene, nodded in agreement. He sensed the turmoil within Shaggy, the conflict between fear and courage. He knew that true strength came not from the absence of fear, but from the will to overcome it. Shaggy's journey was far from over, but he was on the right path. You have to dig deep, Shaggy, Michael said, his voice calm and reassuring as he guided Shaggy through a meditation exercise. Find that place within you, the source of your strength. It's there, I know it is. Shaggy sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, his brow furrowed in concentration. He could feel the energy within him, a chaotic storm of fear and doubt and a strange, unsettling power. Focus, Shaggy, Michael urged, his voice a beacon of hope in the darkness. Don't let the fear control you. You are stronger than you think. Slowly, Shaggy began to find his center. He visualized the lost multiverse, the faces of his friends, the memory of Scooby's unwavering loyalty. He clung to those images, to the love and hope they represented. He took a deep breath, channeling the energy within him, shaping it, molding it. He could feel his fear receding, replaced by a quiet confidence, a sense of purpose. His eyes opened, and for a moment they seemed to glow with a power that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Tenton, ever resourceful, had transformed their meager surroundings into a training ground. She had scavenged materials from the void, remnants of shattered worlds, and fashioned them into makeshift obstacles and training dummies.
You're doing great, Shaggy, she said, her voice filled with encouragement as she watched him navigate an obstacle course of her own design.
Shaggy, his movements still awkward but noticeably faster, dodged a swinging pendulum, leaped over a chasm, and scaled a sheer wall. He had discovered a newfound agility, a surprising strength.
See, Tenton said, handing him a canteen filled with cool water. I knew you had it in you.
Shaggy took a long drink, his chest heaving with exertion. He was exhausted, but he had never felt more alive. He had faced his fears, pushed past his limits, and discovered a strength he never knew he possessed. Frieza, observing Shaggy's progress with a critical eye, decided it was time for a final test. He had pushed the creature to its limits, honed its raw power, but he needed to see if it had the will, the ruthlessness, to survive in this new reality.
Enough of these games. It's time to see what you're truly capable of.
He raised his hand and a blinding white light enveloped the void. When the light faded, Shaggy found himself standing in a twisted, distorted version of his own world. Familiar landmarks were warped and grotesque, the sky a swirling vortex of unnatural colors.
This is your worst nightmare. Face it, conquer it, or be consumed by it.
A wave of terror washed over Shaggy. He could see monstrous figures lurking in the shadows, hear the echoing laughter of unseen horrors. He wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into the comforting familiarity of his own fear. But then he remembered the faces of his friends, the sacrifices they had made, the hope they still clung to. He couldn't give up. He couldn't let fear win. He channeled the energy within him, the power that Frieza had awakened. When he opened his eyes, they glowed with a green fire. He felt a surge of power coursing through him. He was no longer afraid. He was angry. He raised his hands, and the very fabric of this nightmare realm trembled. Shaggy had found his strength, and with it a glimmer of hope. Frieza watched in astonishment as Shaggy tore apart his illusion with a flick of his wrist. The creature had tapped into a power that even he had not anticipated. It was raw, untamed, but undeniably potent.
Impressive, but the true test is yet to come.
The illusion shattered, and Shaggy found himself back in the desolate void. He was exhausted, drained, but he had faced his fears and emerged victorious. He had found a strength within himself that he never knew existed. He looked at his friends, their faces a mixture of relief and awe. They had witnessed his transformation, seen the power that now resided within him.
I did it. I faced my fears.
You found your strength. And now we can use that strength to fight back.
The Anti-Monitor was still out there, a cosmic threat to all of existence. But for the first time since the destruction of the multiverse, the Paragons had a glimmer of hope. The void pressed in on them. Michael, Tenten, Hawkgirl, and Pietro moved through a silence that was more than just the absence of sound. It was the crushing weight of nothingness, the echoing emptiness left behind by the destruction of the multiverse. Each footstep, each breath felt heavy with the knowledge of their loss. They were adrift in a sea of nothingness, the remnants of their hope as fragile as driftwood on a turbulent ocean. Michael, his blue lantern light offering a meager counterpoint to the encroaching darkness, clenched his jaw against the despair that threatened to consume him. He had to believe. He had to keep searching. There had to be something, some spark of hope, hidden within this desolate expanse. Hawkgirl, her wings heavy with grief, kept her gaze fixed on the horizon, as if searching for a familiar landmark in the featureless void. The silence was a constant reminder of the vibrant world they had lost. Tenten, ever practical, focused on the task at hand. She scanned the void, her eyes searching for any resource, any artifact, any fragment of existence that might prove useful.
We need to be methodical. Divide and conquer. We'll cover more ground that way.
Pietro, his movements sluggish, his usual boundless energy depleted, nodded in agreement. The weight of their failure pressed down on him, slowing even his super speed to a crawl.
I'll scout ahead.
He mumbled, his voice barely audible. He pushed off, his form blurring as he sped away, a crimson and silver streak against the monotonous backdrop. Even at his diminished speed, he was a fleeting phantom, a flicker of movement in an otherwise static world. "Be careful, Pietro," Michael called after him, his voice laced with concern. He knew the speedster blamed himself for their failure, and the vastness of the void offered little comfort. It was a place of echoes, of whispers, of memories that haunted the living and offered no solace to the lost. Michael and Hawkgirl continued their search, their movement slow and deliberate. They moved like specters through the debris field of shattered realities, each fragment a painful reminder of the lives lost, the worlds extinguished.
Do you ever wonder if we're all that's left?
I try not to. Hope. It thrives on possibility. To dwell on what might be lost, it's a dangerous path.
Hawkgirl nodded, understanding his meaning. They couldn't afford to lose themselves in despair, not now. They had to hold on to hope, however fragile, however improbable. It was all they had left. The void was full of such echoes, remnants of shattered realities, the lingering psychic impressions of billions of lives extinguished. A flicker of movement caught Hawkgirl's eye. It was subtle, a fleeting distortion in the fabric of the void, but it was enough. She swooped towards it, her wings beating the empty air with a force that belied the emptiness around them.
What is it?
Michael asked, his light following her as she darted through the debris field. He trusted her instincts, her sharp eyes, honed by years of aerial combat and exploration.
I'm not sure. I thought I saw something.
She came to a stop before a swirling vortex of colors, a chaotic jumble of images and sounds. It was fleeting, ephemeral, like a half-remembered dream, but as quickly as it had appeared, it vanished, leaving behind only the oppressive silence of the void.
A memory. An echo of what was.
They were painful reminders of their loss, but also perhaps a testament to the enduring power of existence. Pietro reappeared, his movements more animated now, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Pietro, I found something. A disturbance. An energy signature. It's faint, but it's there. He led them deeper into the void, following a trail of energy that was invisible to all but his enhanced senses. It was like a whisper in the wind, a faint beacon in the darkness. Tenton. What kind of energy signature? Tenton asked, her brow furrowed in thought. She was trying to make sense of this impossible situation, to apply logic and reason to a reality that defied both. Pietro, I don't know. It's like residual energy, but it's different, more focused, almost intentional. The air crackled with static as they approached the source of the energy signature. It emanated from a swirling vortex of colors, a tear in the fabric of the void. It pulsed with a power that was both alluring and terrifying. Michael, be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. They cautiously approached the anomaly, their senses on high alert. The void was a place of strange energies, of unpredictable phenomena. They had already witnessed the impossible. There was no telling what other wonders or horrors awaited them. As they drew closer, the energy vortex stabilized, resolving itself into a recognizable shape. It was a doorway, or at least the semblance of one. It shimmered and rippled, the edges blurring as if it were struggling to maintain its form. Hawkgirl. A portal? Hawkgirl asked, her voice tinged with cautious optimism. Michael, maybe. But to where? And what created it? He took a step closer, his hand outstretched, his blue lantern light casting long, dancing shadows across the desolate landscape. He could feel a faint warmth emanating from the portal, a hint of something familiar. And then he saw it, a fleeting glimpse of something on the other side. A silhouette, barely discernible against the swirling energy, but undeniably recognizable. It's a town, he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. The others crowded around him. It was a town, or at least the remnants of one. Streets twisted into impossible knots. It was a ghost town, frozen in time, a haunting echo of a world lost.
We have to try, Pietro said, his voice firm, resolute. The Paragons stepped through the portal, entering a world that was both familiar and profoundly alien.
The air shimmered, a dizzying kaleidoscope of colors and light engulfing them as they passed through the portal. A wave of disorientation washed over the Paragons. Then, just as abruptly, it vanished, leaving behind a profound silence. Michael stumbled, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady himself. His blue lantern light flickered, struggling to pierce the gloom. The air was heavy, thick with the dust of ages and the scent of decay.
Where are we? Tenton asked, her voice barely a whisper.
It's familiar, Hawkgirl said, her voice tinged with unease. She spread her wings, their feathered tips brushing against the walls of the narrow street as she took flight.
It was as if they had stumbled into a distorted reflection of their own world.
Earth, Pietro said, his voice flat, devoid of his usual energy. His eyes, usually sparkling with life, were clouded with a profound sadness.
It was the feeling that something vital was missing, that this world was a pale imitation of the one they remembered. The realization hit them like a physical blow. They had escaped the destruction of their own multiverse only to stumble into the ruins of another. The weight of their failure, the immensity of their loss pressed down on them, threatening to crush them beneath its unbearable weight. Hawkgirl landed beside them, her face pale, her eyes filled with a haunted look.
There's nothing here, she said, her voice hollow. No survivors, no signs of life. It's a tomb.
Tenton, ever the pragmatist, fought against the wave of despair that threatened to engulf them.
We don't know that for sure, she said, her voice firm, resolute. We just got here. We need to search to see if there's anything, anyone.
Her voice trailed off as she noticed something, or rather the absence of something.
Pietro? She asked, her brow furrowed in confusion. Where's Pietro?
They turned, their gazes sweeping across the deserted street, the crumbling buildings, the empty windows. But the speedster was gone, vanished, as if he had never been there at all.